Today we're doing a review of a book that I just finished from a group of authors that I'm totally not biased about whatsoever. Welcome back to Mostly Vanity. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mostly Vanity. My name's Kennedy, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. This is my show about books and story and whatever else I want to talk about because, well, it's mostly vanity. Today, I'm doing another book review. I've been enjoying doing these, and it's mostly vanity, so I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to talk about these reviews of the books I've been reading, that is. I am a slow reader, so it's probably not going to happen super often. But as I finish books, I'm just going to review them because it's good content, and I enjoy doing them. Today we're reviewing a book that has taken me a long time to get through it. I went through a bit of a reading slump and while I was in the middle of reading this book, just because I had a lot of life stuff going on. But I jumped back into it recently, and I burned through it, and so I have a lot of thoughts. A lot of you guys who are subscribed here know me from Talking Story and me being in that community. Talking Story, a fantastical fiction channel by John and Jacob Minton. And the book I'm reviewing today, if I'll finally tell you the title, is Strange Eons, Book 1, titled Discovery, by J.A.J. Minton. Now, if you don't know J.A.J. Minton, I mentioned Talking Story, the YouTube channel. It is John, Jacob, and John's wife, Amy, who are J.A.J. Minton. And they three are writing this 5-book series about... it's a lot to explain, and I will explain it to you. But it is the genre of cosmic horror, which horror in general is not generally my genre. I'm not drawn to it. I've tried some books here and there. I may eventually get into it. If you have any recommendations, leave them in the comments. I'm pretty interested in trying Christopher Buehlman's Between Two Fires, something like that. It's like the red cover. It's got the medieval knight guy on it. But that book sounds really interesting, and it's kind of fantasy-esque, so it's something I might try to get into. But cosmic horror, again, is not really my genre. I'm much more of a sci-fi fantasy guy. But I trust these people. I trust these authors, and I wanted to give them a shot and support them because they're indie artists, or indie authors, that is. So again, I have a lot of thoughts. Admittedly, I'm biased because I'm big fans of them. Like I mentioned before, a lot of you guys know me from Talking Story. I've done their Town Square videos. I've made silly little videos here and there for Town Square, which has been fun. And again, I know that's how a lot of you guys know me. And so I'm admittedly biased because I'm a fan, but I've been trying to take this book really just for what it is. I want to respect them as artists and give them the ability to, have my honest feedback outside of me being fans of them. I know that's not going to change anything. Now, by the way, it sounds like I'm about to rip this book to shreds. I'm certainly not going to do that because, spoiler alert, I really enjoyed it. Before we get too much into my thoughts, let me explain to you what the book is about. Basically, long story short, there is a discovery, and what they discover is a sleeping alien who is at the bottom of the ocean, and the world pretty much freaks out. Various religions and news organizations and all of these things all kind of just go crazy, and it's following a lot of different characters that are unique in their own sense. But this entire story is not a character story. The characters, they have their personalities. They're very distinct, but they are not the stars of the show. The star of the show is this, like the spider web of what's going on. And I really like Jenny Wirt's blurb on the cover. It says a cosmic board game like no other. And that is what this feels like. Each character feels like a chess piece. And it's not really about any one of them. It's about something bigger. So, yeah, that's all I really want to tell you about it. I definitely recommend you go read it. But I'm going to give you kind of my pros and cons. I'm not going to get super into spoilers in this review. I just don't... I would rather you go read it. But I'm just going to give my overall thoughts. Non-spoilery. Probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of this video. But that's okay. So, I have a lot of pros. Pros is in PROS, not PROSE. Just wanted to specify that here because a lot of us are writers. The word that I keep coming back to for this story is distinct. Distinct is the word, and distinct makes it sound like it's something bad, and I don't think that is true. But it is very unique. The acknowledgments, or in the acknowledgments, they mention, that they're standing on the shoulders of giants, and they're really inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, and this is a very Lovecraftian. The sea monster, or not sea monster, but the alien, they call him the Sleeping One. That's very H.P. Lovecraft, if you know anything about H.P. Lovecraft, which I only know a little bit about. But yeah, it is very distinct, and I think that's hard to do, and to do well. I can write something that's distinct that's not good, but it's hard to do well, and that's just what I keep coming back to is distinct. And it has a really unique way of telling the story. It's called An Apocalypse in 5 Acts. So there's 5 acts of the book, and in between they have entr'actes, something like that. I can't. It's some sort of Latin or Greek thing that I'm not familiar with. But it's basically in-betweens of this character named Oliver Doss, who is a computer science guy who is basically trying to make artificial life. And this book is set in the early 90s too. So it's pretty groundbreaking stuff, right? And there's a lot of characters in here. There's kind of too much to go deep into each of them. But one thing about these characters, although I don't think any of them are really the stars of the show, the character voice is a standout quality here. And I've heard a lot of people talk about how specifically Amy is really great at character voice, and it really shows here. She is definitely highlighting some really great things here. Each character feels like even without dialogue tags, I feel like I could know who was talking. And that says a lot. And not a lot of books can really do that. They really depend on the dialogue tags. This is kind of a sidebar. One of the weird things I found about the dialogue tags is a lot of times they would be in the beginning, like instead of da 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 da, they said da da da, and it was just different. I haven't read a lot of books that are like that, which isn't bad. It's just it was a notable difference for me. But the character voice is a big standout in the story. And I'll say again, I'm not going to get too into the spoilers, but the ending of this crescendo, it hits. The last really third of the book, I burned through. Couple days, and I'm a slow reader. I read a book a month on average, and that's fast for me. So I was very invested in finishing it, especially once I got to a certain point and things started moving and revelations started happening, and that's when it started moving. So it's very clear reading this manuscript. They spent a lot of time polishing, a lot of time going through, making sure this crescendo, because I feel like this entire story is very much a crescendo. It's very clear they have spent a lot of time with a lot of really great people at this reviewing it, such as Jenny Wirtz and a lot of other various booktubers or authors. They have a great team around them, helping them with the cohesion of everything. And I didn't find a lot of issues or like plot holes or anything like that. I just really didn't find a lot of that. Now, that being said, there are a couple things I don't like about the book. They're mostly nitpicky, to be honest, but there's a few things I think are issues, right? As the story is a crescendo, I've used that word a couple times now, it's definitely a slow burn. The book is a slow burn to me, especially in the second to third. Like, I kind of think of the book in thirds, even though it has all the acts. The first third was like really interesting. You're discovering a lot of stuff. The discovery's happening. Then there's a lot of other stuff that you don't really know why is happening in like the 2/3 half, whatever. I don't know. First third, the second third of the story. There's a lot of stuff you don't really understand what's going on, and you're meeting a lot of these new characters. And you don't really know how they connect, and there was parts there that really drug for me. And I'm not against a slow burn, but I think the burning was a little bit too slow in spots. And I think some of the things they focused on, might be important in the future, but some things I think they dwelled a little bit too long on the stories of these people. Specifically with Tony and Ashanti, I think their acts were... could have been just a little bit shorter, and that's just my opinion. I wasn't super engaged at that point until we got back into some of the Oliver Doss in-between stuff, and that makes me mention is that a lot of people don't like those Oliver Doss memoirs in between. It's kind of like diary entries, very epistolary, and has like news snippets and stuff about the world, and it's a really good way to kind of lore dump through that. I really like how those sections really broke up the story and kept you engaged. That definitely helped with some of the slow burn aspects, in my opinion. But yeah, there are some parts that I think drag a little bit too much. The second thing I have a little bit of issues with is kind of hard to explain. There's a few pieces that I think has the author's modern bias in it a little bit and putting it into these characters. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, these are characters from the 90s. They're from all over the world, different backgrounds. I mean, there's Americans, there's a girl from Ghana, there's a guy from South America, and like they're from all over the place, right? But there are a lot of things that I'll be in and listening or experiencing the story, and then the character will say something that just feels very off for somebody in this place at this time period. Like it feels not like that character, and it's not really like that I had any issues with what was being said or those morals involved. Like I didn't really have any issues with that, but my problem is that it seemed like it didn't fit some of the characters, and it kind of threw me out of the story a couple of times. It's weird. I can't even think of a specific example right now, but there's a few spots that this happened that just felt like this is not the lens that I would expect this character to see through. And I don't know. There was just a few things like that I noticed that just felt a little bit heavy-handed, and I don't know. It's a little bit hard to explain, but there were just places in that I just felt it just threw me out of the story a little bit. But yeah, that's most of the cons that I have with it. Again, I didn't see a lot of plot holes or grammatical errors or anything like that. Like it's a well polished piece of work. And I was looking through all the books I've read this year so far, Again, I haven't read a lot, but again, I average like a book a month. And so I've read like 7-ish books, and this will be my 8th for the year. And I started thinking about it and looking through the other books I had read, and I really think this is one of my more favorite books I've read this year. Even outside of my bias and fandom of talking story. I really did enjoy this book, and I enjoyed it for a very different reason than I normally enjoy novels. Normally I'm very connected to character arcs, but like I said, this story isn't really about that. And so it was a little bit harder for me to read because that's not normally what draws me to books, or like what normally draws me to books wasn't the focal point. But it was still very enjoyable, and I enjoyed, the reveals and the mystery and kind of unpacking a lot of this stuff. And there's still a lot of stuff that's left unanswered that I'm interested to see in the second book, whenever that comes out. Overall, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't do the half stars, but it's definitely on the higher side of 4 for me. Again, there's just a few issues I have with it that keep it from a 5-star. But just really good. Either way, I recommend you try this. They also have like a full cast narrated audiobook of this story. And I have not tried that yet, but it sounds very interesting. And a lot of people have said it's really great. So go check that out as well, if you want to get a taste of it. But yeah, go check it out if you're interested. I definitely recommend you trying it. It's worth trying. It might not be for everybody. And some things might throw you off. You might not be drawn to the story, but it's worth experiencing. It is a very enjoyable story, and I am very interested in where it's going to go. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to talk about with it. Have you read Discovery? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Love to hear in the comments. Again, I'm a big fan of John, Jacob, and Amy. And so I appreciate them and appreciate what they're trying to do. They really champion indie authors, and I'll probably eventually be an indie author. There's a lot of other indie authors I've found through them, and so I think what they're doing with their channel and what they're doing with their writing and just their place in BookTube is important, in my opinion. Again, clearly biased, but all right, that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you guys next week.